Fifth Ward podcast. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm doing great, Timmy. Looks like we're at podcast number 11, right? Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, and look at we got a lot of things to talk about today. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's get started. All right.
Let's get started.
Hey,
All
I
right,
want to
Timmy.
talk.
Hey,
I want to talk quickly about the de facto campaign manager, Gil Ethier. You know, shuttling Keeler around. Out to breakfast, to events. So I think it's kind of funny that after endorsing him in February, now he's shuttling him around city in his car.
well, maybe
So,
they're nervous. Maybe they're nervous that Ed Kenner's at least got enough votes coming his way, if maybe not to win, but to embarrass them because, Ed is like the Rocky underdog. Nobody expects him to win, but everybody's giving him a lot of love and, giving him
yeah,
kudos for being out there trying. It seems to me there are a lot of unhappy people. Um, and Ed is the one guy giving people a little bit of hope that something magical could happen. So
yeah.
I guess Gil's worried about it as well, and that's why he's the taxi driver or the limousine driver or the
Yeah,
Uber driver for
yeah,
Keeler.
right. That's it. Hey, so look at. I really want to dig into the post that Mayor Keeler put on his personal page, and anybody that goes onto that page that seemingly offers an opposing opinion or says it's wrong or this or that are getting deleted off of their comments are getting deleted. So much for free speech by a mayor over people are his constituents. But bottom line is, okay, he went into this diatribe post, which is basically all lies and falsehood, misleading. He's called the election silly season. Okay, now you're
That's a Gil
familiar.
Ethier. Look, that's a Gil Ethier comment. Gil used to say for years, "We're entering the silly season, Sean." So, be prepared that people are going to say and do a lot of crazy things. So that must be a copycat. He must have heard that in the limo.
Yeah, that's true. So look at so he goes on TV 13 and he says, "Hey, we're looking at a double-digit tax increase because of the ambulances." And he says, "Now we're going to pay $1 million for an ambulance, which is manageable, right?" But he says for two ambulances, but Sean, we've got 1 2/3 ambulance. One of them is here only 16 hours, 7 days a week. That's not two full-time ambulances.
Yeah, Timmy. Let me just ask you a question because I don't know if I'm familiar with how it happened. Right. So he has a Facebook page, meaning he has Mayor Keeler, that is his personal elect Bill Keeler page. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it is, but he's calling himself mayor on his personal page.
All right. So he has a personal page, and
Yes.
on that page he wrote a long post
Yeah.
that suggested that a lot of stuff that's being spread around is falsehoods, and then he
I-
gave his opinion on what's really happening in the city. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is, and actually, it's really misleading, pack of lies. He's fudging the numbers. Okay, it's just I don't know who's writing this info up for him, but it's just not right. Let me give you an example. Here he turns out and he says like the music hall. He said we're saving the music hall somewhere like $250,000. Or over the last 2 years, or even 3 years, they had budgeted 89,000 for the operation of the music hall, right? Well, now it's 75,000, so it's $14,000, not 250,000. You know more about the music hall than anybody else how to run that organization. Why don't you just jump in and talk about that real quick?
Yeah. When they first came out and said they were getting rid of Holly Brown, who was the person that we brought in to run the music hall, turned it into a number one rated music hall, and brought thousands of people to our city. They used you know, this number of $250,000 it was costing them to run it, and she was making all this money. And I publicly came out and told them that was a bunch of lies. It appears that, you know, the city hall now distributes a ton of lies about things that they want to do to make it look as though They're doing it for a specific reason rather than their own personal reason, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just saying, I'm the mayor of the city, I'm going to put people in that I want, this is what I'm doing, they come up with these phony numbers. So the music hall did not cost them 250,000. See, what happened was we hired Holly Brown to run the music hall. We worked out a deal to pay Holly Brown as a non-city employee. We paid her to manage the music hall. And in return, she got X amount of money. We got X amount per ticket, like $2 per ticket. And then when you took the two and you did basic math, if we paid her 150,000 and she brought in 80, you'd minus that, and that was the city's contribution to run the music hall, right?
Yeah.
It was actually cheaper than running a swimming pool up in Lansing's, right?
Yeah.
But it was the engine that got the city of Cohoes started, and it's the reason why the city started to boom. Then we decided we had a nice new $1 million park and we wanted to utilize that park. And one of the things that we thought would be a great addition to the city of Cohoes and draw more people to the city, more people to the downtown, help support our local businesses, we met Owen Smith. Now, Owen Smith is the guy that was running a production company called Park Playhouse. It
Right.
is a
Right.
world class, world known production using kids in these great plays. And Washington Park in Albany, it's been down there for forever.
Yeah.
So we worked out a deal with Park Playhouse and asked them if they would come up here and do these plays in our park because we thought, what a great thing! Now we have a music hall, we have these plays like Albany, and Albany gets 25,000 people packing those the park on those days. So we had to pay Owen Smith to come and bring those plays to the city. So what happens was if you added up the music hall and Park Playhouse, you get 200 and some $1,000. Okay. All he really did was this. They fired Holly Brown, used a bunch of bullshit to do it, took Owen Smith, and I told you in a previous podcast, Chris Briggs was behind my back trying to get rid of Holly Brown to bring in this Mr. Owens, right? Owen
Yeah.
Smith,
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, I should say.
Yeah.
His first
Yeah.
name is Owen,
Yeah.
because Chris Briggs and his wife like plays, concerts, and all the other things that brought in 30,000 people. So he was behind my back, the sneaky bastard that he is. And so they got rid of Holly. They bring
Yeah.
over Owen Smith. They get rid of the plays. There lies some savings. So what they should have said is we cut out Park Playhouse because Park Playhouse was costing us X amount of money. The music hall still had to operate, and we're still paying almost the same amount of money that it is to operate. And there's not a $250,000 savings because really the only savings would have been what did it cost for Park Playhouse, and when they cut it out, that $86,000 or $90,000 it cost to bring in these big plays for kids is now gone. So don't let them tell you they're saving $250,000. They're full of shit. And if anything, they may be saving money, but you can see the repercussions because we don't have 30,000 people down in our city any longer. And some of these restaurants are dying and businesses are closing up. And you could see how the train starts to go faster and faster on the tracks when you do the wrong things because it's hard to build things up, Timmy. It's really easy to wreck them.
Yeah.
And
It's
so the reality is maybe they're saving $60,000 a year, but that's really just because they cut out Park Playhouse from Canal Square Park.
yeah.
It's not because they got rid of Holly Brown at the music hall.
Okay, so look at it. Let me jump right into the next thing I want to talk about is the recycling. Now we went out and bought all these bins and they're nice bins. Okay, I like the bins, but the problem is they're saying that they 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 saved money over the last 3 years in recycling costs, but that's just not true because we're spending somewhere about I would say $25,000 a year in overtime costs just in recycling for DPW.
Yeah.
So it's because the bins slowed everything down because they have to hook them on a truck and dump them into the truck using a lift system. Slowed them down so much. okay, opposed to being able to grab the bucket off the ground, dump it in the and throw it back down. That the bottom line is you're looking at 25 grand a year in extra costs that we
Yeah.
didn't have. So we can knock that loss off of where they claim they gained. So no, the recycling, that's not anything that we're gaining from.
So
Jump in on
so
that.
the recycling is not based on how big your bin is for cost of
Right.
recycling. Recycling is paid to the um, the people collecting it for us, the dump,
Yeah.
by weight. So it doesn't
Right.
matter what size bin you have based on how much a year you bring to the dump, right?
Right.
When I was the mayor of the city in my last year, we were paying zero for recycling.
Yep.
After a few months into the third year, something happened, and I don't know what it is. It's a global issue where China and other countries started saying, we're not taking no more garbage, right? So it went from a free program, recycling, to $50,000 a year. So the easiest way to look at it is this, and we'll do this for future podcasts. You go to the city's budget, you find out how much they're paying for recycling. You go back to 2019, look at over the couple years, and you'll see that it's probably not costing saving them any money because the bins just collect the waste. The waste is sent to the dump. The dump charges you by tonnage,
Yeah.
by weight.
Right.
And so
It's just taking us longer to collect it.
so
That's
the
what's
only
going
thing
on.
it's doing is it's taking you longer to collect it. You see these kids out past 5, 6 o'clock in the summer,
Yep.
and they're paying a shitload of overtime. I assure you this: I examined every option that there was for garbage, and including recycling. We didn't buy these cans because we knew that while they would collect more recycling material, that it would take a lot longer and cost us a lot more in labor costs to pick them up every day. And so
And
we
that,
were looking at other options like letting people go buy their own can of whatever size they wanted up to a certain
yeah.
number because you have to lift them and let them dump their recycling in our recycling bin and we just take it away. They chose to buy these cans, and unfortunately, you see the repercussions. It's costing a ton of money in overtime, so they're not saving no money.
Right. And I want to jump into on that message that he put out on his personal page where first he did go on TV 13 and he did say to, the ambulance, okay? We're now looking at $1 million a year, which he now says is manageable, okay? But he goes on TV 13 and says, well, if we do this when it was $50,000 at the time, we can look at a uh, double-digit tax increase, and that's when we were looking at 50,000 a month. Now
Yeah.
it's 88,000 a month, and now he's calling that.
Yeah, Tim, you're right. Okay, you you can't spend this kind of money being a small city, and then on Friday tell the whole public that it's a double-digit tax increase. Then when you start getting a group of people who are going after you in the campaign year
Right,
about how
blowback.
right how poor of a job you're doing and how much you're trying to cost us, then you come back and say $1 million is manageable. These are not manageable costs. This is a small city. A
And he's
small
talking
city,
3 years. He's saying through 3 years, too.
yeah, a small city works really hard to build up a reserve fund, keep taxes down, and provide services and try to stay at that flat level, right? So that you
Yeah.
have the same amount of firemen, the same amount of police, the same amount of DPW. You try to reduce costs by technology and trying to find better solutions. So what happened is he went on TV and he told the truth. This is what
Yeah.
we're probably looking at.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Oh shit, why did I do that?" And then he goes out and puts this big, this big synopsis on this big letter or whatever you want to call it, preaching on his page. Um, that it's if you know me, you know I would never raise taxes double digit. Well, no shit. You know why we have a 2% property tax cap? You can't just raise taxes to 15%, right? There's a whole process you have to go through. So then he
Yeah.
comes up with this manageable, and they use these words to make it sound like, hey, we're okay, no problem. We're going to be okay. Look at all the savings we had. So we just talked about two things that he said were savings that are lies. They're not savings. He's not saved no money or no significant amount of money over in the music hall. He didn't save no significant money. It probably cost him more to do recycling, and so now you are going to face a tax increase. There's no doubt about it. But
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, when I was in politics, right, I was always part of the budgeting process. And I used to tell people in the district, and it was when I was in the legislature, there's two types of things that happen. You either raise taxes to cover the costs, or we reduce the value of the taxes that you're currently paying because we reduce your services. So, in essence, you're paying more and you're getting less. And that's what's going to happen. There's no way in the world that you can give out 8% raises over 4 years to the firemen, the police, the DPW, and at the same time have $1 million for an ambulance and a or 3/4, right? On top of other things that are going, the cost of National Grid goes up, the cost of the landfill goes up, the everyday cost of life goes up. When you start calculating all these things, a small city is not going to be able to absorb $1.5 million of costs. So he's in a pickle, and
Yeah.
it's election year, and he's only got to get through a few months of bullshitting people
Yeah.
until he gets elected. And then you know what happens? The truth comes out again.
Yeah.
We're in trouble. We got to raise taxes. We got to cut services. Now, you know that I said it, and I said, you heard it here first. Watch what he does to the fire department.
Yeah.
He's not going to, he's going to reduce how many firemen show up. He's probably going to do the same in other, because he's going to be in a pickle. He's not going to have the
Yeah.
money, and he's not going to have the ability to raise that kind of money. He has no economic development coming in, which means there's no new money, no new pilots, no new tax revenue, just expenses, expenses, expenses.
Yeah.
And that's not including the stuff that he's just pissed away with our money with stupid stuff. So the guy's in trouble. The city's in trouble. And you can't sugarcoat it on a freaking Facebook page with a, you know me, and anybody who knows me knows I wouldn't
Yeah.
raise taxes double digit. The guy, I hate to say it, I do. He's full of shit. The guy lies. He's like
He's, o-
Pinocchio.
he's over his head. Look at that. And while we're on this, look at. He also, let me tell you how he arrived at this $9 million figures in his post where he says he's saving $9 million on streetlight costs. Here's what he did. On average, it was about $450,000 a year for National Grid, right?
Correct.
Somewhere in that window, all right? That's what we paid before the streetlights. You take that 450,000 and multiply it times 20 years or 20. You know what
Yeah,
the
9
number
million.
comes out at? Nine
Yeah.
million dollars. That's all he
Absolutely.
did. But
That's
he's
all they
not
did.
right. And what he's not doing is he's not saying, well, we got in a budget $200,000 a year for streetlights.
Jimmy,
Okay,
we had a
plus
whole
the
podcast
bond.
on this, right? Do you
Right,
remember
plus
one
the
of the
bond.
first pod?
Yes.
One of the first podcasts we had, because they were talking about how we were saving $9 million over 20 years.
Yeah.
And we said, that's bullshit. And I got some numbers for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want people who are listening to let me try to put this into the kindergarten way of saying it so I don't screw it up. I have a way of being long winded, and sometimes I lose people. So let me be like as simple as I can. Keeler wants to be Mr. Green, and he wants to, turn the
Yeah.
city into this green footprint because he's part of that left liberal crazy people that think that cows that fart are causing the world to fall and we're all going to die, right? We got to get rid of cows. We got to get, we can't have, gas stoves. We can't have, now they're talking about reducing the use of your dishwasher. I mean, it's just insane shit that these crazy people are doing to us and thinking they can control us just because they can, right?
Yeah.
So Keeler comes up with this idea. Now, it's not a new idea because they came to me first, and I told them I wasn't interested because I knew what the reality of the situation was. It wasn't going to be what they were selling you because it was a bill of goods by Governor Cuomo. Governor bullshit Cuomo, who was telling people we all need to consolidate and we need to find all these ways to consolidate, and they came up with street lighting, right? One
Yeah.
country gets, or one company gets rich by financing or selling you this stuff. Everybody else buys into this with their tax dollars. And at the end of the day, let me tell you what happened in Cohoes and what's happening. I foiled the information and got no response. So I'm just going to use what was in 6, 10, 13, the Troy record as their figures coming from the city of Cohoes. It was $6 million plus, 6 million plus to buy the streetlights, then retrofit the lights with all these new type of
Yeah,
light bulb.
we bought 1,597 lights.
Right. And then we had to retrofit them with all these with these light bulbs, and in return, that's going to save us all this money, right?
But
So
it's not.
the bond is over 6 million. The city of Cohoes has to pay roughly about 400,000, and now I don't have the exact numbers because they won't send it to me. So I'm
Right.
just using what I could remember when I was running the city. The bond means every month you have to pay the bond, and the bond comes out to about $400,000 a year. So now
Right.
you have a brand new $400,000 a year bill, right?
Right.
Now, in order to have any type of real savings, you have to save $400,000 somewhere with the lights to break even. So that means when you put the new light bulbs in, you have to save $400,000. That covers the cost of the bond now, and you're only paying National Grid $50,000 a year. Follow me now? Right? Everybody's got that. That's basic math. We pay a new 400,000. We have to save 400,000. Otherwise, there's no savings. So the city pays the first year that Keeler's in there the 450. The second year, they pay 400,000 for the bond, and they budget 200,000 for the lights. Now, mind you, 400 plus 200 is 600,000. The lights were only 450 when we started this, right?
That's
So now
right.
you're already paying 250,000 or $200,000 more a year to run the lights than you were before you started all this. We're going to fix them with these new light bulbs.
And here's a further problem on that too. I don't mean to throw you off track,
Well, you
but
just threw me off.
well, well, wing
Go
it
ahead.
then. Okay. So look at so now we got they're out of warranty on the labor in 2 years. So forever we'll be paying labor to replace any of them goes bad, and then 8 years from now the parts warranty is up. Okay, so that's 10-year warranty on the lights. Jump back in.
All right. So we were going to get there. You got ahead of me, but you're right. There's going to be a long-term cost that they're not telling you about. But so we pay $600,000 in his second year. They budget 200,000. Well, guess what? When the bill came in, it was 313,000. So they had to go take another 100,000 from another line item in the budget, put it in to pay the National Grid bill. So now you have 400 plus 313. That's $713,000 for light bulbs that used to cost 450,000, right?
Yeah.
So now this year, what did they do? They budgeted $200,000 again. Where's the savings? If they were 450,000 and now you're paying 600,000, where's the savings? You're losing 200,000 a year. Now, you won't know until next year what the actual cost is, but I will mind you that I'll come back on the show and I guarantee you they're going to have to move more money because it's going to cost more than 250,000 because those light bulbs are not saving 400,000, 300,000. So far, they've reduced cost by 100,000. So
Yep.
you paid 400,000 to save 100,000, but that 100,000 isn't real savings because you're still paying all the money for the bond. I know it's kind of confusing in the podcast, but the bottom line is the city's paying probably 250,000 to 300,000 more every single year to National Grid since we put the light bulbs in because we're paying for the light bulbs and we're paying for the bill, and the bill hasn't been reduced enough to have a savings.
Right, and that bond is really a loan, okay,
And that
basically.
bond is nothing more. It is a loan. That's what a bond is. It's
Yeah,
a
it's a loan.
governmental goes out and says, "Hey, let us borrow money and we'll pay you back."
Yeah,
So he's full of shit in everything he said in that letter so far because every
so
single thing that he
we
said
could
has cost
debunk
us
it
more
all.
money.
Right, we could debunk it all. And here's another thing right here too, okay? He's talking about the floating solar system that they're gonna put on the reservoir. How that's gonna save us $500,000 a year. But he didn't factor in that he was going to be shelling out $1 million a year for an ambulance. So, so that pretty much croaked the system too. Look at it, $500,000 where we're supposed to save for the city, but now an ambulance is costing us $1 million. So we're at a $500,000 loss.
No matter how he shakes this stick and tries to convince you
Yeah,
that it's all beautiful, it is an ugly picture, and the
it's
city has a ugly future because of the mismanagement of the system and
yep.
our funds. And I don't care what the guy says. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I came under budget 3 years in a row. We built up our rainy day fund. We didn't raise taxes. We brought in new tax revenue. I'm not a fool. I know how to get things done. I can look from the outside and realize that whatever he has done so far has been detrimental. His
Yeah,
his his policies are as bad as my fake wall that keeps moving behind me every time I move my head. Right? It is what it is. It's
hey,
a terrible policy.
I got a fake wall behind me, but it doesn't move.
Yeah, I know. I don't have such a great system here I got to get better
I,
lighting. I'm at my kitchen table, man. I'm just a small guy at the kitchen table trying to tell the people of Cohoes what is happening that they wouldn't know about. Timmy, I get all these emails about how great the podcast is and how great they like this one, they like mine, and all. We see the numbers creeping up, creeping up, creeping up, and then every once in a while, I get some asshole who sends me a email that says, "Oh, this is just a political show, and it's just meant to beat up, Mr. Keeler, and you guys are just trying to hurt him." First and foremost, let me tell you something. There's a difference between a political show, which we are. We're talking about we're talking about the political position of our city, right? And there's a difference between political and politics. Politics is the dirty, rotten, scandalous bullshit that goes on with politicians every day. And yeah, we're kind of political because we're talking about things that are in the political realm. But
well, we
we are the
care about our
farthest thing.
city. We
This is the
care about
farthest
our
thing from
city, right?
politics. I
Yeah,
was in politics. I don't want to be in politics. I want to tell the people of Cohoes something that's happening in their city that they would not know of because they're always getting one side from the person who's doing it. The mayor puts out information. All you got to do is go to his page, right? So I did. I went over and looked at the letter and the page, and I see all these people on there that just make me sick. Oh, good job, Mayor. Oh, Mayor, this is perfect. Oh, Mayor, can't wait. You're doing such a wonderful job. And then I noticed that half of them don't live in the freaking city, and the ones that do are just the same John McDonald, Bill Keeler. They could step in shit and wipe it on their forehead, and they'd somehow
yeah.
say thank you for the perfume that you gave me. I mean,
Rose-colored glasses.
yeah, they just walk around with their
Yeah.
eyes closed.
Right.
They make me sick. Some of
Yeah,
these people,
yeah, my
but the
buddy.
reality is they're there,
Yeah,
Tim. And so
yeah,
he's always going to have, and I just like I will, and just like you will. There's always people that no matter what you do will love you. There's
yep,
loads of people that no matter what you do, they'll hate you.
yep,
And really, what you're trying to do is find that people in the middle who just want
yeah.
to know the truth.
And that's
And
what we're
so
doing here.
we are giving them the truth, whether they like it or not. This is the truth. Whether some people think, oh, you're just talking about all the bad things in the city, we're giving you the truth. I can tell you the Easter Bunny's coming and the Easter egg hunts on this day, or hey, we're going to pick flowers or we're going to plant flowers. You can just turn to the city website and find all that information, right?
Right, yeah, it's right on their Facebook page.
Yeah. Who's going to watch our show to hear about when the Easter egg hunt is? They can find that out themselves. We do talk about good projects. When Mayor Keeler does something good, I'm the first one to say, hey, he made a good choice on that, and it's a good move. The problem is right now, in the last 5.5 months, the city's had nothing but crises going on from terrible work that's being done on our streets. And I'm not saying that the mayor's doing the work. I'm saying that why isn't he up there screaming at the people doing the work who are leaving potholes the size of, the Grand Canyon in the middle of the road so his residents are not hitting those potholes? Or why is he not saying, why are these stones all over the sidewalk where the kids are walking to school? Or why are you filling these holes with sand and it rains and then there's a lip this big and our cars hitting them, the kids are tripping? That's what I would do. That's what I did. That's his job. I'm not saying he's doing the shitty work. I'm saying he's doing a shitty job overseeing the shitty work.
He's just
So
making
what are we going
bad
to talk
decisions.
about?
So look at I want to jump in another thing he said in that same post. Okay, he said that he reduced taxes in the last 3 years, which is false.
Yeah, that's a lie.
Okay.
He didn't reduce taxes at all. Well, let's not say, let's play semantics. His first year, and if anybody believes anything different, it's going to be those people on his page kissing his ass. Oh, Mayor, you're doing a great job.
Yeah, yeah,
His,
yeah.
his first year, Chris Briggs raised taxes for him,
Right.
and it was the first
He did.
time that we raised taxes in the time that I was there.
Yeah, three
Right?
years. Yeah, in 3 years.
Three.
Yeah, yeah.
And I want to underscore there's politically not raising taxes, and then there's real not raising taxes. In order not to raise taxes, Timmy, you have to be able to say, this is our budget, this is our revenue. And you have to have as equal to or more revenue than you have expenses, right?
Yeah.
We were able not to raise taxes because we were bringing in all kinds of new businesses. We had all kinds of new pilots. We had all kinds of money coming in for permits. And we had over $75 million of private investment. That brought in thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So we were able to take those thousands, put some of it away into the savings account, and then add the rest to the budget and pay our bills without having to go to Timmy and Sean and say we need more of your money. That's the basic premise. What this guy's done and what he continues to do is this. The first year he has Chris Briggs, the dodo bird, raise taxes.
The rat. The rat.
And when you call him the rat, I'll call him the dodo bird. He raises taxes under the guidance of I'm doing it, Chris Briggs, which he wouldn't do it. It was really under the Bill Keeler, I want you to raise taxes. Then the second year they don't raise taxes, but they went over budget. So they had to borrow more money from the rainy day fund. And for the people who ain't watching, the rainy day fund means this. That means you have a small amount of money in a savings account. And once you spend that money, unless you have a steady flow of extra money, you don't have it no more. So the city put away 18% of its budget for major problems. You have a major $1 million break, you have this, you have that, you have money to pay for it. And that's called the rainy day or the savings account fund. It isn't to pay your bills because you can only use it one time. If the bills are $1,000 more a year and you only have 1,000 in that account and you spend it, now you have nothing. You got to figure out a way to come up with 1,000 next year. So he was using rainy day money to offset his excessive spending. And then he gives a 0% property tax. To me, that's a political dangerous zero. And then he comes out and says, I'm the greatest mayor since sliced bread. I'm going to reduce taxes by 1%. Well, anybody can reduce taxes. The problem is once you reduce it, where you got to find the money to pay your bills next year because something tragic could happen. And lo and behold, he reduces taxes by 1%, and now we have to find $1 million to pay for an ambulance.
That's right.
So that's why mayors across the country don't reduce taxes by any number.
Yeah.
They'd rather say we're not going to raise no more because we're being responsible with the budgeting, we're responsible with our spending, so we don't have to raise no more. But when you give it back and you don't have a steady flow to replenish it, you just get yourself deeper in trouble. We're not Schenectady. Schenectady was able to reduce taxes. You know why? Because they were getting a surplus of $3 or $4 million a year because they built a casino.
Right. Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
we don't have
Yeah.
a casino.
Yeah.
So if you take money out of that rainy day fund, the only way you can replace it is that you cut the amount of spending you do, which means you reduce the services. And so then you could put more money away. So just like your house, Timmy, just like your house, you have a savings account and you have a checking account. And you hope that the savings account keeps having money added all the time. And you hope that you never have to take it out of your savings account to put it in your checking account because then you're in trouble, especially if you have to do it every year now to supplement your income. So he's not saved us a dime. He spent more money than anybody who's ever spent sitting in that seat. And I assure you that 4 or 5 years from now, somebody else will be stuck holding the bag because it takes a little time to catch
Yeah, it
up.
does. It does. And look, in his remarks on his page, too, what he said is that once we put the floating solar system in, and we're supposedly going to save $500,000 a year because we're supposed to be not paying all these electric bills from all the city buildings and stuff, right? He also says any extra power generated would be used to for other purposes. But the problem is, again, where we crippled this is we got $1 million a year ambulance service.
Yeah.
So you're saving 500,000, whatever we got left. Okay, you're going to need for the other 500,000 for the ambulance. Okay, so no, no, no. The whole post that he put on up there is just rose colored glasses. It's fabricated. It's a lie. I don't even think he's the one that wrote it.
Well,
Okay.
just look at his timeline. Everything that he told you would happen in this timeline has crumbled because he wasn't prepared for things that could happen in the future. And I used to say all the time when I sat down with my team, when we do a budget, we will deal with today, we will deal with
Yeah.
tomorrow, and we will deal with 5 years down the road,
Yeah.
because you always have to be prepared to deal with today's budget, tomorrow's problems, and the long term forecast. Because if you don't do that and you live in the moment, you get what Keeler's given you, which is a crisis that's coming down the pipeline. Because all of the savings that, so think about it this way, he takes out this big bond, and basically what he says is, we're going to save all this money by the electric, and then when we put the solar panels in, whatever we're not saving by the light bulbs, we'll add it to the street lights, and then we'll break even, and therefore we're going to save money over the course of these times. Well, guess what? He can't do that now, because even if he saves 500,000 a year, he's got to pay for the ambulance,
Which we had
which
free.
means that the lights that we have now that were 450 are probably going to cost us $600,000-$700,000 a year for the next 20 years, because there's not enough savings, and the savings that he told us he would have from the panels just got eaten up by the ambulance.
Yeah.
So everything he's done has just cost us more money, more money, more money, and there's no way to fix it until you start reducing the value of the taxes I'm paying now by cutting my services. I used to say, charge me more, give me less, and then tell me you're doing a good job. You can't. You got to give me more and charge me less. Then I'll say you're doing a good job. So he's in trouble. And the
He's in a lot
streetlights
of-
was the first sign of it.
Yeah. And look, we predicted this. What was it? 6 months, a year ago, we predicted this. This was going to happen, and it's all boiled down because of the contract, Sean. The contract. Once I looked at the numbers and said, whoa, 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 we got a 20-year bond for a warranty that's only 10 years on the lights. Okay, and then a labor warranty is only good for 3 years. So that means we're gonna have to hire probably some kind of electrical contractor to go on up there, and we gotta pay him to replace any of the lights that go out. So, and we've already talked about that, not to beat a dead horse, but the bottom line is this, okay? This changeover to these LED streetlights is gonna cost us forever, starting in another 2 years, okay?
Yeah, I think you're right. We talked about this, and we predicted that it would be a disaster. Let me even say this, right? Let's just say, and it's not factual, but let's just say Mr. Keeler was correct. Let's just say he said, okay, well, if I borrow 6 million and I only pay 400,000 a year for that, and I save $400,000 a year because the new light bulbs reduce the cost that we pay to National Grid. Boy, what a great job I did. Right? Let's just say that he's right. And then he says, if the light bulbs don't save enough, well, the solar panels are going to save me the additional cost. So now between the light bulbs and the solar panels, I cover the cost of the bond, and any savings that we have from the lights is now part of a $9 million 20-year savings. Even if that was all correct, and it wasn't, it was flawed from the beginning.
Yeah, it was.
The ambulance has just cost him any chance of doing that, because the ambulance is almost $1 million a year. So he better get solar panels for not only the reservoir, he better put them all the way up and down Western Avenue, because we're in a lot of trouble
We are.
financially.
Yeah, and look, if we predicted this here, what I'd like to make clear to everybody out there that listening to this podcast, the street lights that we had were owned and replaced and maintained by National Grid. And that's the difference here. Okay, we went out and we bought our own, which means we now own them, we maintain them, we have to replace them when they go bad. Where previously that was all National Grid. So the bottom line is we really screwed ourselves big time going over to LEDs, because although they do save money electricity wise, it's all the things behind it. As I said before, it's typically not the LED bulb itself that fails, it's a circuitry in there. Okay, and they've already had to replace two in my street, and that was done under warranty. And I imagine as these things wear, okay, and especially in the heat with the summer coming on up, we're going to start seeing more and more of them fail. But
Yeah,
anyway,
it is just one disaster after the other. Timmy,
so,
listen, people in the city of Cohoes are pretty smart people because people talk to me about the streetlights. I mean, it's not a sexy topic to have on a podcast. Streetlights, streetlights.
yeah, yeah,
But this podcast isn't about being sexy. It's about being honest and giving you information, and you could take it for what you want. You could say, "Oh, Sean and Timmy are full of shit, and Keeler's the greatest thing since sliced bread," or you can say, "I'm glad that I know what's happening in the realm, in reality, because I'm getting fed a bunch of bullshit." The streetlights are not saving money.
we're cutting
Look at,
through it. That's
listen,
what we're doing here. We're
New
cutting
York
through it.
State and Governor Cuomo pushed the streetlights as a national, state, I shouldn't
Yeah.
say national, but a statewide initiative so that he could come out and say, look what I did as governor. I got everybody to change over their streetlights and look at blah, 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 right?
Yeah,
Did anybody other than me, when I sat down with the people trying to sell me this pile of horse shit, ever say to them, well, wait a minute, doesn't the cost almost every 2 or 3 years of our electricity go up and up and up? And over the course of 20 years, forget about all the other things that we're talking about. Just
yeah,
the price of electricity alone goes up, up, up every couple years. So that's going to eat away at your savings. But here's the big kicker. We live in shithole New York State. And New York State is pushing you to not have gas stoves. You can't have, gas cars. You can't have you got to reduce the amount of water that your dishwasher, that's the newest one they're talking about, which is going to require more power. So National Grid has basically said, whoa, time out. I mean, you're going to force us to raise the cost of electricity just so we can fund the replacement and the new grid and trying to generate more power. You're going to force between 17 and 27% increase in the cost of electricity. Just alone. So while the state of New York pushes dummy mayors into this, this pigeonhole to put all these lights in, the same assholes that are pushing you to that pigeonhole to save money are then behind your back making
yeah.
electricity cost 17 to 27% more than it did today. And so you don't have to worry about if, you don't get the solar panels or if you have a new ambulance. You're going to have to worry about just the cost increasing because state of New York that pushed you into the pigeonhole to buy them is screwing you behind your back, and the cost is going to go up 20%, and you ain't going to have no savings anyway. So it's going to be a disaster. Nobody looks at what we're doing today, how it affects tomorrow, and what's going to happen next year. All these politicians live in the moment for hand clapping and press releases. And hand
Yep.
clapping and press releases is a self-gratitude part of politics. They can accept unwarranted applause, Timmy, but they can't take and they can't accept warranted criticism. And we've seen that because Bill Keeler has now decided that if you go on a page that he's the minister of and you criticize him as the mayor, he blocks you from the page. And he won't let you, share your thoughts about some of the initiatives he's doing. So that's
He
where we're
puts
at.
out, right, he puts out false information or misleading information, and he doesn't want someone else going in there and straighten his butt out like I do.
Right.
Okay?
Who did he block? Who's the one who told me they got blocked? I can't remember.
I'm not sure, but I know people who have contacted me said they're afraid to post on his page because they expect it to get blocked.
I know people who actually. Oh, the fire department.
Yeah,
The
you're right.
firefighters went on and said, Mayor, this
Yeah.
is not accurate. From the streetlights to the cost of the ambulance, this is all bullshit.
Yeah.
And he blocked the fire department union from
Yeah.
speaking on his page to have a different opinion than what
Yeah.
he's saying about what he's done. Nobody in this city who's looking at this thing from normal eyes can see a savings on what he's done and can believe what he wrote. Anybody, people are smart, Timmy. They read it and go, "We're not saving no money. We're not. This ain't
No.
saving no money." And he wants you to believe it because he got caught up in a pickle by going on the radio, going on the news, and saying we're looking at a double digit, and one way or the other, people are going to have to pay. To saying, "Oh God, political year, this is manageable. Don't worry about it, people. We're good." And then people go on and counter him on his own page. He deletes you.
Yeah.
That's a pretty classy move, isn't it?
Right, and you know what? Look, he didn't see this coming really with the ambulance problem. It was always free. It was running smoothly, but he didn't have to have eyes on the problem like this. And then what happened? He did all these things. Then it creeped up on behind him. Next thing, boom. So all of this plan. If it wasn't for this ambulance problem, he might have got away with getting all these things done. All right, but now the ambulance is going to take everything that he talked about saving why and cripple it, and it's just
Well,
not going to
I
happen.
don't, I don't believe that myself because before the ambulance problem, you and I talked about it last
Yep.
year. How the street lights were already costing us
Yeah,
$200,000 more because we had to pay for the bond, and the savings wasn't anywhere close to what they projected.
but it's
And
antagonizing the problem.
right, and this just makes it worse. But
Yeah,
again, Tim, when you're running a city, you can't look at it from day to day. You have to look at it from the moment you walk in
Yep.
and project 5, 6, 7 years down the road. Everything that you do has to have a now, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I don't mean the end forever. I just mean when you're looking at your cycle. I used to use 5 years. So it
yeah,
would be where are we today? Where will we be 2.5 years? Where will we be in 5 years? Right?
yeah,
And so when you're making these decisions, you also have to say, man, as the mayor, I used to say all the time, well, I didn't see that coming. Oop, I didn't know that was going to happen. Oop, how the hell did that come? How did that come to fruition, right? Because it was always more money, more money, more money. $1 million water break, ambulance, firemen, people get hurt. There's all these things that happen that tear into your budget and take away your revenues, and you have to be prepared for them. He doesn't see it like that because he's over his head. He just goes down to the city hall, looks for things for people to clap, and then he leaves. I don't even know. I
yeah.
don't even think he puts in an 8-hour day down there. And all the shit was happening with me, Timmy. I was really down, and I had a lot going on in my life. And sometimes I knew that I was leaving, and sometimes I'd go in for 3 or 4 hours, and they put a big article in the newspaper. Morris doesn't show up for work,
Right, yeah,
right? This guy hasn't put in. I put in more hours in a week than he's probably put in his whole term, and nobody says a word. You don't hear nothing from the paper. You don't hear. Isn't it almost like the national news, right? We have all these
right,
bad things happening,
right.
and you don't hear a peep about them on the national news, especially if it's run by the Democrats.
Well,
Just
look at
zip
it.
quiet.
Right, and look, I've been in contact with the State Attorney General Office, the Albany County Public Integrity Unit, the New York State Police. I've been in contact with some of the TV media. Okay, they're not interested in covering things in Cohoes. Okay,
Yeah, because I'm
but
gone. It's not a
right,
story, right?
right,
Hit,
right.
what they do is they don't want factual shit because that's boring. Just like we just talked about our podcast, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
talk about the things that are controversial because that's what people want to hear. That's what people want to know
yeah,
because they can find the other stuff. They want the inside stuff. We could start a story, Timmy, and make up a lie and get that ball rolling as big as a freaking snowball, and people will jump on it and believe it because we're
yeah,
saying it here on the podcast.
yeah. And
That's what the media does.
and right,
They create their own stories, and then they keep pushing them and pushing them, pushing them because it's their story. Who
right.
cares? They don't care that Cohoes taxpayers are going to be in trouble. They don't care that Keeler's sending out Christmas cards using taxpayers' money. They don't care that he don't report things on his campaign finances. They don't care that he's got all these problems. They don't care.
And he's
I don't see the
protecting.
Times
Look at
Union. Now, they've been to the
right.
city since I'm going. Do they know where Cohoes is down the end of
Well,
787 if you just
I
go north?
Well, I sent an email off to Lyons down there.
Yeah.
Lion
What'd you
Jeff
get out of that
Lyons,
clown?
right? He totally ignored it. He did
Of
open and
course.
read the email, but he ignored it. No interest there to cover corruption in goals. I mean, you got Keeler's office raiding the city clerk's office and taking $300 in stamps. And you know what? where's the chief of police? I'm talking to Todd Walden down there and say, hey, they raided the clerk's office, took $300 in stamps, mailed out 500 Christmas cards to all of his buddies and friends and select businesses and stuff like that. And the bottom line is, okay, it's a cover up, covered up by the ethics board, covered up by Chief Todd Walton. And if you're listening to this, the Chief Walden, yes, I wanted to come in and put in a report, and you didn't want to hear it. So
Of course. Well, he was appointed. Look, the guy's lucky he has a job. I'm not going to
yeah,
go into the details, but you know what?
right,
He's not the most honest guy. I can assure you. I sat down with him and he lied to my face, lied on paper. He wasn't the most honest guy. I used to think he's a great guy. You know, he got
yeah,
put in a bad spot, and his response was to lie. But the reality is he got appointed by Keeler. He's not going to look
right,
at Keeler. The bullshit excuse of, oh, he's the public safety commissioner. Can
right,
you
right,
imagine
yeah,
what the headlines would say in the newspaper when, if that was me, and the response was, well, we can't investigate him. He's the public safety commissioner. They
yeah,
would have attacked me. There was a situation where a guy in Cohoes made a claim, and the
yeah,
guy who did it is one of the biggest scumbags in the world.
yeah,
He is a piece of shit. He's a guy
right,
that everybody knows, and nobody would for a second believe a thing that he would say because he's out of his mind, right?
yeah,
But the Times Union put him under the wing, and he became the spokesperson. And the big headlines are like, Sean Morris uses his posse. The cops are Sean's posse. The cops never even supported me. They didn't even like me because I went in to make changes they didn't want to do. So the reality is, you know, the media only wants to go after the people they don't like. If I would have been just this little mouse, shut my mouth, do
yeah,
what I was told, I'd be sitting in that seat down there for 40 years.
yeah. And
I
look,
didn't want to be the guy. I didn't go into politics to be a politician, or I would have been the chairman of the Democratic Party for the county because I had that opportunity before they gave it to Danny McCoy,
yeah,
right at Smith's restaurant.
right, right. Look,
They
at
said, it's yours. Do you want it? I
right,
go, I don't want to be involved in politics. I want to be involved in change. I want to be involved in fixing things, building cities, building the county, right? Building a nursing home, saving people who are struggling. I was really driven by helping people. That's what drives me.
look,
And you know what?
yeah,
It got me in fights with everybody because most of the Democratic Party don't give a shit. When I was in the county legislature, which is the biggest waste of governmental money that I ever seen, and I was part of that waste, 39 legislators for a county government. You know what the county government does? Does
no,
anybody know what it's the
well,
social safety network for the county and its people. And basically all it's really exists for is so that if the state gives money, you can accept the money because there's always got to be a process. They vote on the money, they accept it, they vote on a budget. They've turned themselves into this whole body of left-wing whack jobs. You can't drink out of a straw. You can't eat a donut. Girls can be boys. Boys can be girls. The freaking world is insane. And right here locally, I would always speak out against it. I'd fight that because I go, dude, what is wrong
yeah,
with you?
yeah,
And you know what happens when you
yeah,
fight the system?
yeah, yeah. You become
I fought the
targeted.
law and the law won, brother.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah, right,
happens.
right. Well, as you know, I went to the ethics board. They're a farce. They now have sanctioned uh, anybody such as the mayor, common council members, whoever. If you want to send out Christmas cards to all your buddies and friends, okay, there's $2,000 right there in the till for you. Go ahead and do it. Raid the city clerk's office. Take whatever amount of stamps you want to do. Okay, it's okay with the chief of police. Okay, it's okay with the ethics board. It's okay with the mayor's office. Okay, this is a problem in the city.
Yeah,
Okay,
how is it a problem in the city where they all overlook all this shit, but a mayor in another city had to
Gloversville.
resign
Yeah,
because he
Gloversville.
used it wasn't Christmas cards, but he used city stamps for sending out
Person, right, person of
something
size.
that said, "Hey, I'm a realtor, and you can call me if you're trying to buy your house." I'm just using that as an example. But
Yeah.
is that any different than just sending out Christmas cards to your friends, your family, your businesses, and people that you like?
Well,
I mean,
especially our ethics
if
board.
it's city
Right,
money, it should have went out to all residents. Then I would
everybody,
say,
and
yeah,
look,
I get it.
right. And this was looking at, and I explained this to the ethics board. All three of them got these Christmas cards. You think that they would have recused themselves from hearing this matter and sending it over to Albany County just for the hell of it, even though the county ethics board probably had done nothing about it either, okay? But there's a process, okay? And the process has failed. Everything I did going through this whole process, it failed in every matter, okay? U.S. Postal Office, um, as I said, uh, Albany County ignored, state attorney ignored, state police ignored, chief of police ignored. Okay, common council members, everybody got a card except Bill Smith. You know why?
And
That,
Sean Morris
and
and
Sean
Tim
North and
Thibodeau.
me. I didn't get one. You know, I
I don't know if Ed
probably
Kenner got one, did he? Or did Ed Kenner get one because he
I
was?
I'm not sure, but mine would have said return to sender.
Yeah, I got a Christmas card. I get one every year. You know what it is? It's a card that's addressed to my family that says Mayor Morris is a wife beater,
Oh
and they send it
wow,
every year to me. And
wow,
it just reminds me um, how sick of a society we have
yeah,
that you can send things without putting your name on it and tarnish a man's life. And yeah, there was never a story in the Times Union or anywhere else when I got cleared of every single thing they said to me, right? Everything
yeah,
that I did.
yeah,
Um, and when you get cleared of everything by the state, then they send the feds after you. So you can't win these battles. I fought
hey,
the law and the law won. I fought hard. I stayed in it to the end. But guess what? I was in a position where I said, I'm not spending one more penny of my money to fight something that even if I win, I've already lost. And
yeah,
so it all depends on who, Donald Trump, you can hate him. You can hate him with all your heart. What this country's doing to that man is a great
yeah,
example of how far we've fallen as human beings,
yeah,
right? Ruin his life, ruin his life, ruin his life, ruin his life, put him in jail, murder him. They don't care what they do to the guy. They could care less. They can hang him in town square. They wouldn't care long as he doesn't impede on them being in power
yep.
or
So,
go against and shine a light on all the shit that they do. Unfortunately, Timmy, you and I are shining lights on it, and God knows what they'll try to do to us. But they've
I'd
already
say
did it to
bring.
me once.
Well, they got you, but I say bring it on, okay?
Yeah, that's right.
Bring it on, okay?
Truth, lies, and political bullshit. The Fifth Ward and the good, bad, and ugly. We're just trying to tell the people what really happens out there. And again, the haters will hate, the lovers will love, and if the people in the middle, it will give them a chance to make a decision on what side of the road they want to fall. Because the information that we give you is real, the information that we give you is raw, and you're getting it from two guys who've never been afraid to speak their mind. I'll just give you an example, Tim. I just want to show people what I mean by that. Okay, here we just talked about lights, right?
Yep,
When I put this up there, this shows what the lights actually cost. So 300 and what is it? Is that $313,000 in 2022 when they budgeted 200? That means it was 113,000 over. And in this budget this year, they budgeted 200,000 again. When we share those numbers, we're sharing the budget right off of the internet, right off the city website. These are not
that's right.
Sean Morris's numbers, Timmy Thibodeau's numbers, or some member calling into the podcast. We take every phone call, and I get hundreds of them. Timmy gets on. We take every phone call, every email, and we don't say, let's have a podcast as soon as we read it. We say, okay, you take these things, I'll take these things, and let's go out there and be fact checkers, find out the truth. Sometimes we get shit, and it looks like, wow, that'd be great to talk about, and we find out it ain't true, so we don't even use it.
Yeah,
But the
that's
stuff that we
true.
talked about today is stuff that came right out of the city's budget. So none of it is
And
bullshit,
right,
except for what they're
and right.
telling you.
Yeah, and what look, and what I've said, which is true, I protect sources and identities. If people tell me, "Hey, I got something for you," there, if they want me to keep it quiet, I keep it quiet for them. I don't throw the. So yeah, I do have whistleblowers. I have people inside city government, outside city government, concerned citizen. I mean, we get a bunch of stuff. We get things that are happening in the school system. So, some things that are so disturbing we can't even really don't even want to talk about it. But
Yeah, I want to talk about it next podcast because I was just trying to do a little more research. And I'm going to send
Yeah.
an email to both of the principals at Abraham Lansing's in the high school, see if they want to
Yep.
come on and talk about
Yep.
some of the allegations that are being raised by parents
Yep.
about their children. And once I send those emails, I'll give them time to respond, and by next week we'll have a podcast and we'll talk about some of the stuff
Yep.
that is being relayed to us by parents who are highly concerned about the safety of their kids,
You're right.
and the lack of any help from the city of Cohoes or the police department. So,
Right.
listen, I think we're in trouble financially. I think whether it happens tomorrow or 3 years down the road, you need to write down the dates of today, because it takes time sometimes for the pile to fall. It takes time sometimes for the hole to get dug. But when it gets dug and you see it, remember, it didn't happen on that day. It happened years down the road or years before. I tell that to people all the time. A lot of this stuff happened in the city today was stuff that I passed 3 years ago. It takes
That's right.
time. It takes time to see success, and it takes time to see the failure. Somebody always
Right.
gets to walk in to the shit sandwich that was caused by somebody else. So, Cohoes, I think we're in trouble financially. I think the downtown's falling apart. I think you can see it yourself if you just drive around or if you go down to the establishments. They're hardly ever open. I'm rooting for them all. I'm giving them I go down there and I use my money to help try to keep them open. Um, but what you heard today is the reality and the response to the letter that Bill Kaler put out on Facebook about all of the savings that he's telling you that he's saved and how he would never raise taxes. And you just have to be smart enough to realize that he just told you 2 days before we're looking at double digit increases. He can't do that without state legislature because the 2% property tax. So you'll probably see a reduction in services that makes up for the difference that he can't raise in taxes.
Yep.
And we'll continue to bring you the news, man. We'll continue to bring you the
Yep.
shit that's the truth. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you don't like us, keep watching. If you love us, keep watching. And if you're not sure yet, keep watching. And
Hey,
stay with us, right, Timmy?
right. And look at, I want to wrap up with one quick note here. Um, in the fifth ward, Tom Dion had to fight to go to court to get on the ballot after he turned in his petitions, and the word is that the court ruled in his favor. So there will be a primary here with in the fifth ward with Tom Dion and Adam Biggs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we had this conversation off camera,
Yeah.
Timmy, right?
Yeah.
Here's the reality, right? First and foremost, I like Tommy and I like his
Yeah.
wife. I'm a big fan of both of them. But, shame on anybody who's running this campaign that they can't make sure that
Petitions are right.
the
Yeah.
petitions are done correctly, and you have to go to court and fight because you leave the name Cohoes off your petitions. I mean, he's
Yeah.
lucky because I don't know how that didn't become a fatal error. For
Yeah.
most people, or back in the day, I guess, if this was
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago, he wouldn't have been on the ballot. Maybe
Yeah.
because we're a little more liberal today, and
Yeah.
he was able to get on there. So congratulations. But Tommy, make sure the people who are watching your campaign watch every move because they're not there to help you. Because if they were there to help you, somebody at the Board of Elections would have said, "Hey, sir, let me look over your petitions," because I always used to say, "We look over these and tell me if there's any problems." And they would have told you that there was some mistakes, and you could have corrected them. The fact that you hand them in, and the Board of Elections, who are supposed to help the people, don't even tell you that there's a flaw, tells you that they're not out supporting you, right?
Right.
Don't think
Yeah.
Kathy Donovan is out supporting you or Gil or anybody else because Adam is their person, and he's their person because, as you can see under his career, he's just been a hand raiser and has done nothing to
Bobblehead.
fight against the bad stuff that's happening in the city.
Right.
He's part of bringing it down. I support Tommy Dion. My whole family supports him. I hope all you people will support him. I'm not afraid to say that it's time for a change. Tommy will be hopefully the right kind of change. I think the same thing for Tommy Fife on the island. If you want a true a class act, Tommy would have never taken the island and broken it up into pieces. He's going to be a great candidate, so I do support Tommy on that. And so those two people who are in that little battle, I'm going to have to support my nephew. He's running or my cousin. He's running as an independent. Timmy,
Yep.
Brendan LeQuee. I like Sean Higgins a whole lot, but family first. And I think they'll both do a great job. But I'm giving the kudos to my cousin. And sadly, we don't have anybody in the fourth ward because they played games with the districts. Another thing that Alicio promised that he wouldn't do, and he went against his word. And in the third, Timmy, there's only one candidate.
I believe his name is Santos, I
Yeah,
believe, but I
yep.
could be wrong.
Great, great. Look at they're a good family. They're on Congress Street. They've always been involved. They never asked for anything, you know. Although it appears that Chris Briggs, who I think is one of the worst council members ever in the city of Cohoes, probably handpicked him and went to him because sometimes these guys think they own the seat and they're going to pass it on to the next person.
Yeah.
I don't think you could get a better person and a better family. I think they're a great family, so I think they'll do a good job. But hey, that's my picks. Let's see what happens. And Timmy, thanks for having another show, number 11. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you keep watching. And Sean Morris is signing out from Cohoes, the Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
And this is Tim at the Fifth Ward, okay? Have a good day.
Timmy, see you later.
Yep, thank you.